Hi everybody and welcome back to the second episode of the Fireside Chat series. In this episode I'm going to talk about the importance of reading widely in a broad sense and also how to leave a legacy, something that following a MGTOW paradigm supports and facilitates. This is another unscripted video in the style of my last one that was informed really by Franklin D. Roosevelt and his series of Fireside Chats, so that's where I take the name from. Today then I'd like to begin by just stressing the value of reading, and this is something that I've only recently got back into after a long time away from it. When I was younger I was reading quite advanced material. I would say that's just my opinion for my age. Reading adult novels. I think I read Jurassic Park: The Lost World when I was about 8, and that had quite a bit of complex terminology. So, for example, the chaos theory that Ian Malcolm discusses at length in the book. That was very good in terms of looking back with hindsight, my development of vocabulary and the like. And moving through school as well, we did read Animal Farm, which is still one of my favourite books of all time. But there were others that we didn't engage with that I now have the opportunity to catch up in that regard. I fell out of love with reading fictional material not long after leaving school, purely because of entering the workplace, getting into music, also my engagement in academia in terms of science. I was reading a lot more research papers, which is a separate skill, and certainly research papers do build the vocabulary, do enhance your mind, but they are very different to reading anything else, and anyone that's out there that has experience of that will know what I'm talking about. So about a year ago I got back into reading fictional books, and I do have quite an extensive book collection from spanning the fictional realm and also the sciences, philosophy, history, and I do have a wide range of interests. But it saddens me at times that so many people nowadays especially don't have an interest in reading, and everyone's preoccupied with iPads and handheld devices and telephones and mobile phones I should say, and this is very disappointing, especially now I've got back into the reading. It's you really do gain so much in terms of expanding your mind and your imagination, for example by reading fiction, good quality fiction, that it seems a shame to miss out on that, and it enhances your ability to construct prose. And for example, if you are going to aspire to be a writer of any depth, perhaps you have a blog, perhaps you aspire to write your own novel like I do, the only real way that you can develop your writing style and create your own is by reading as much fiction as possible. And Stephen King has alluded to this in a number of speeches that he's done and Q&A sessions. So this is it's a crucial issue that society has in terms of, I really don't think that the printed word is going to die out. For example, bookstores over here in the UK, we have Barnes, in the US, those guys have Barnes and Noble. In the UK we have Waterstones, which is one of my favourite places to go. But I enjoy having so many books to catch up on. I mean, at school, like I said, we only read Animal Farm was the one that I really bought into. I wasn't, as much as I understand how important Shakespeare is, I am not a fan. And I fell out of love with reading fiction due to my pursuit in academia of science degrees and things. And again, only in the last year have I gone back to it, and I've started building up quite a big collection of fiction, and I've read quite a few books this year that are undeniable classics but I've just not read them before. So for example, Lord of the Flies was one. 1984, I'm a big fan of the totalitarian and dystopian genres that, again, these do have themes that can be extrapolated to MGTOW, I would guess. And really, this is sort of just come into my mind, is the fact that if I was, say, married or had children, would I have such an amount of free time to engage in these books? I mean, I have got through quite a few this year, and on top of work commitments, and I've just started a new job, which is very, very demanding, hence why the videos have dried up of late, and I do apologise for that. But the key thing is, for me, is using and optimising your time as much as possible. I've got a few friends now, most of my friends in fact, are either have girlfriends or wives and even children, and this is also true of the majority of my family and extended family. And talking to them in conversations, you almost get the feeling that they are jealous of me in a sense, because I've got no dependents, and I haven't enlightened them with red pill knowledge or red pill notions. But you always know in the back of your mind that that's what the story is. And thankfully, because of my awareness of that, and my self-education through YouTube and through ebooks and the like, an awareness of that knowledge, an application of it, that's the key. You need to be able to apply the knowledge, has enabled me to have all this free time in between work commitments to actually get that reading done. And I think that reading is one of the most important things that you can do to enhance your own reality and enhance your own self-actualization. I've always got about 4 books on the go, 2 of which will be fiction, and generally I'll start them in tandem and finish one long before the other, but you could argue that 4 is way too many, and I'm trying not to be too greedy in that respect, and just manage 1 or 2 at a time. And the other 2 will be personal development or self-help books. So for example, I'm reading Robert Greene at the moment, Mastery, thoroughly enjoying it and highly recommend it to anyone out there that's looking to increase their knowledge of themselves, but also what's required to truly become great at something. And this sort of leads me, or segues into the next issue I'd like to talk about, which is leaving a legacy. And some of you will no doubt have seen my video on legacy and what you intend to leave behind. It's clear to me that so many people intend to, whether it's intended or not, make their mark on this world by their progeny. So, they have kids, and basically their kids and their kids and their kids and so forth are really the only evidence that they existed. And this notion, it saddens me quite a bit, to be honest, because I used to think that way. Years gone by at school, I envisaged meeting the perfect woman, getting married, and that being that, and just having a job that just paid the money, and then having kids and all this. And at a very early age, though, probably even in my teens, I shook this notion off, and I started to think a bit more critically, because I've always tried to question things, and this was to my detriment from a parenting perspective. I started to change my outlook. I started to think, why can't I leave a legacy that's more tactile? I want to say it's more tactile. I want to say that, you look at these people like famous MGTOW, in terms of like legends, not just legendary MGTOW, but just legendary human beings that have contributed so much to the human race and left such a lasting legacy that they'll be spoken of in 1,000 years from now. People like Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Tesla, all these guys. And really, I mean, I know I can never aspire to anything like that, but just, I've always wanted a job where I can make a difference, and that was part of the reason why I left my manufacturing job and tried to enter the academic world, purely because I enjoy research and science. I've always enjoyed science, but the path for me wasn't set out, and perhaps that's another topic for another video. I'm just going to get my cup of tea. I do drink a lot of tea in England, as people probably know. It's the stereotype. Yes, so I've known in the back of my mind for about 15 years that leaving a legacy is more than just leaving flesh and blood behind, and having a MGTOW outlook on the world, that MGTOW perspective, that paradigm that so many men aren't aware of or haven't discovered. It's invaluable knowledge, absolutely invaluable, and I think we're extremely lucky now with the advent of the internet. You know, we've had the internet, really has been a part of my life since 2000, I want to say, maybe 1999, 2000, and it really is invaluable. It's an absolute godsend in terms of the knowledge and the education that you can gain from YouTube and from blogs and articles. It's massively important. So we're blessed to have this knowledge, and that we can now apply it. And as I said, going back to family members and friends that have now got kids, and they literally have no time, absolutely no time, especially when the kids are young, when they've just been born, and you know, before they start school, they have no time whatsoever. They're always knackered, they're tired all the time. Just the other day I went around a friend's house, and there was a load of his mates there, and we were all sitting playing FIFA and just shooting the breeze, having a few beers. And really you could see in my friend's eyes, his kids were asleep upstairs, and I think one is about 2 now and the other's maybe 6 months. And you could just see in his eyes, like his eyes are glazed. Like, I mean, I feel tired at times because of I've had to commute a fair bit for my job and set off at early hours and get back late, and there becomes a time where you are that tired that it's borderline dangerous at times in terms of just health. You feel absolutely exhausted. It becomes beyond sleepy. You are absolutely spent, and your brain is just not even functioning. And that's the look that he had. It was a vacant look on his face, and I was just thinking, you know, this is, I mean, don't get me wrong, he made the rod for his own back, but there are times where you just think, you know, I do pity him sometimes. But I mean, there's no doubt that obviously he loves his kids, and that's fantastic, but it's not the lifestyle that I want, and it's not something I'm going to pursue. I don't ever see my mindset changing on that. So how do you actually set about leaving this legacy? And part of this, again, builds on the concept of the notion of reading and expanding your knowledge, because we MGTOW have got so much time now in terms of, you know, we don't validate our existence, I should say, on the approval of women or what society tells us to do, and that's a noble viewpoint. So basically we have all this free time that we can then invest in our hobbies, whether that be weightlifting, sports, reading, writing, blogs, books, pursuing musical interests, so many things. And it also affords us the optimum opportunity to become the best we can possibly be. And a number of authors in the personal development world have attested to the fact that 10,000 hours is the key number, the magic number. And there is some leeway, I think, with that in terms of conscious and unconscious practice. But really, if you put 10,000 hours into a skill and you get the right coaching and you get mentored, then you can't but fail to do well. And you can't fail to do well. And Stefan Molyneux's done a great video on this, the Screw Talent video, that I'll probably put a link into the description box. And it's a wonderful video that he just breaks down the whole concepts in terms of, if you just work your ass off, then you can really achieve great things, and whether that you become the best or not, it doesn't really matter. You afford yourself the best possible chance of succeeding or reaching an excellent level of skill in whatever discipline that you choose. And again, I look at my own life when I'm reading through this book, Mastery, and I'm sort of trying to apply this to my own existence. So, how many years, if you say 10,000 hours, that really applies to 7 to 10 years, depending on obviously how much you do practice-wise. How many hours have I invested in academia? Probably about 6 years. 6 years worth. How many hours have I invested in my musical interests? Probably 14 years. How many in reading? Across my whole life, reading and writing. I used to, at primary school, when I was really young, I used to write stories for the head teacher, and I really vaguely remember her going on about this in one of the school assemblies, but that has been very much a dormant skill that I've forgotten about since then. And obviously that would have been very derivative stuff, would have been garbage if I read it now, but the spark was there, and Robert Greene in his book basically says that you should pick up on these sparks and pursue them to their fruition. So every one of you out there will have a latent spark of something that you just have to find again, and that might be your way. And of course there's other ways into the fields of development that you can then divert your resources and divert your time into, that will no doubt be of great benefit. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I mean, it's just me rifling off some thoughts. Again, I'll just reiterate the key themes in this video is you really need to start reading. For example, I've got family members who have just as much free time as I do, who don't read, and I don't want to be a snob, I really don't, but really there's no excuse not to read or not to have the passion for it, because there's so much material out there and so much knowledge contained within these books, whether fictional or not fictional. You're going to really put your imagination to work, and it's going to expand your mind. You look at some of the great films, film adaptations of books, the book is always better. I've not found one yet where the book hasn't been as good as the film. Also personal development work and history. I have a massive interest in philosophy at the moment. I'm trying to read about some of the objectivist notions, Ayn Rand for example, some of the, I would class myself as a libertarian. I wouldn't say that I subscribe to objectivist philosophy. I'm just trying to understand it and study it, and I do think that if you're going to make a decision about what side of the fence you're on, you need to be able to argue both sides of the argument before you can come to a conclusion. So yes, history as well. I do enjoy the history of not just the British Isles, my own nation's history. I read a lot about American history, and also the other nations in the Commonwealth as well. I do have a big interest in military history. I'm anti-war, but I do want to understand how we got to where we are today. I love reading about the Cold War era history as well, the East v West. And it's just an awareness. Obviously, it's a separate discussion, but the state of play in the United States, I do think that to understand what's going on now, then you really need to understand where they came from and how the nation was created and the principles upon which it was founded. So again, I have a massive interest in the historical side. I wish that I could have done history to a higher standard at school, but I was interested in it, but my mindset was in my music at the time. And certainly, if given the opportunity, I would do do a degree in history because I would just enjoy it so much. But this is the point I'm striving towards. I'm trying to all the time add new strands to or new strings to my bow, and just really become a well-rounded and scholarly person in the manner of the great polymaths of the past. And like I said, even though I can't aspire to be like them, or would never consider myself to be, it's a good mindset and it's a good paradigm to live your life by, and it affords you the optimum strategy for leaving a legacy beyond simply flesh and blood as well. So I hope you enjoyed just my thoughts on these issues, and I really would appreciate if you could add your own input and discussions and notions down in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for listening.